All right, it's time to get specific. You guys will want to take notes on this section. I'm going to go through a lot of different income opportunities, side hustle opportunities, call it whatever you want. I'm going to go through a bunch of them. There are thousands of these things. But the purpose of the series of videos that I'm doing is to crack open your imagination, to show you some things that are possible, to give you some ideas about how you can create side income and you can get things for free and not have to spend any of your own money. Okay. So again, the theme of this is you don't need money to make money. You just need to know what's out there and you need to execute on the plan. So get ready to take notes. Be willing to watch these videos multiple times in case you miss it, because I'm going to go pretty fast. Let's start with the Airbnb, the biggest one. Just in case you may not know, most of you probably do know, Airbnb is a platform that allows you to rent out a portion or all of your house and essentially run it kind of like a hotel. The amount of income you can make on Airbnb is unbelievably high. So how do you get involved? As a person who may or may not have a deep capital stack, let's just say you don't, how in the world do you Airbnb if you don't have a house? Let's just say you don't have a house and you're like, man, I don't have nearly enough money to buy a house. How do I do it? Well, the vast majority of you are going to have access to the VA loan. So the VA loan is the most powerful financing instrument that exists. It is a zero down competitive interest rate loan where you can get mind-boggling amounts of money to buy the house, and it's zero down. And if you do like my buddy Taylor Wing did, and you at your first duty station, you use the VA loan to buy a house and you get the seller to pay closing costs, to pay your closing costs. He literally got into that property, a 3-bedroom, with $0 out of pocket, zero money. And then he lived in he stayed in the master bedroom and he rented out the 2 other bedrooms to fellow soldiers that were stationed with him. And the amount of money he rented out those 2 rooms for each month was more than the mortgage, meaning he lived for free. He collected his BAH, he pocketed it, and he used the rent income from renting out those 2 bedrooms to pay for the mortgage. So not only did he get into the house for free, he never paid a mortgage on the house using his own money. And then whenever he changed duty stations, he just rented that house out, and now it's a rental property for him. $0, right? So you don't need money to make money. You just need access. You need access to, for instance, the VA loan. Okay, so how can you house hack and live for free? Let's just say you use your VA loan and you're stationed there and you do just like what Taylor did. You rent out, maybe you furnish the, I had somebody do this, furnish the garage, right? Drywalled it, insulated it, furnished the garage. And that was his home office and bedroom and everything. And he rented out the rest of the house and he made a lot of money, not just living for free, but he made a lot of money. And you can do this at literally any duty station you're at. You think San Diego, right? Oh, San Diego's too expensive. It's like every house is $1 million. How in the world could you do this? I know somebody who used his VA loan to buy a 4-plex in San Diego for like $1.3 million, zero down. He lived in 1 unit, rented out the other 3, and within a couple of years, he was living for free and pocketing his VAH. You can do this anywhere. It's crazy. Well, let's just say you buy one of these houses and you're going to get deployed. What do most people do whenever they deploy? They either they cancel their lease if they're renting, or if they own the property, then it just sits there. But what if you use your VA loan to buy a property and then you get orders for a deployment, maybe a 31st new, and you're going to be gone for 6 months? Well, you can list it on Airbnb and rent it out for 6 months and make money, not just pay your mortgage, but make money while you're on deployment. And then whenever you PCS, why in the world would you sell the house? Most people, when they PCS, they sell the house because they don't think they can do anything with it. Well, maybe you could rent it out long term, which is what I would recommend. Or maybe you can rent it out, what's called short-term rental, Airbnb, and turn it into a cash flow stream when you're at your next duty station. You use your VA loan to buy it, zero down. Then when you get transferred to another duty station, you rent it out on Airbnb and you turn it into an income stream. And here's the coup de grace. And this one is incredibly relevant to me right now. Use your house to pay for your vacations. What is the traditional mindset when it comes to vacations? It's we save up a bunch of money, you take off of work, you go on vacation, you have a good time on vacation. It's stressful, but it's also fun. Then you come back and you try to dig yourself out of all the credit card debt and then you repeat that cycle every couple of years. Right? That's the traditional American philosophy when it comes to vacations. And when you're on vacation, what happens to your house? It just sits there and you're either still paying rent or you're still paying the mortgage while it does not create any income for you. That's a liability, not an asset. But right now, I am sitting in a guest house, a family guest house in Carmel, California, because we traveled up to see family. My house in San Diego that I used the VA loan to buy, zero down VA loan to buy. And then I renovated it and did a VA cash out refinance to get all of the renovation money out of it. So I have $0 invested in that house of my own. But that house right now is booked up through the summer on Airbnb. And that money is paying for my wife and my kids and me to travel up the coast and then go fly to Central America and live in Guatemala and Costa Rica and Belize for 2 months. You don't have to be wealthy in order to live this kind of lifestyle. You just have to have the knowledge and take the action. I used my income from the Marine Corps to qualify for this VA loan to buy this house in San Diego. Then I borrowed money from friends and family to renovate it. And then I did a VA cash out refinance to pay them back. All stuff you can do, all stuff that anybody in the military can do. And then I listed it on Airbnb and it's rented out through the summer, booked up. There's like 35 or 40 reservations of different people coming in and they want to come see Southern California and they want to stay in a house, not a hotel. And so it's booked up and the income from those bookings are what we're using to pay for the camper van that we drove up here, the Airbnbs that we're staying at in Central America, the plane tickets, the cars. I'm telling you, our house right now, as of this recording, is paying for a dream vacation for my family and me. So you guys can do this as well. And that's the whole idea. If you're interested in the Airbnb strategy, the VA loan house hack strategy, using your house to pay for vacations, any of that stuff, all of that is in the supplemental material. All of that we will guide you through and handhold you through with the support team. All I'm trying to do with this example is to show you what's possible. Okay? So if that's something that you want to do, go ahead and jump on into the supplemental materials, contact the support team, and use your VA loan, house hack, live for free, make money on deployment, keep your house when you PCS to build wealth while you serve your country, and then use your house to pay for your vacations. It's awesome. All right, next up is two of my favorites, Spinlister and Fetch Truck. Okay, you may have heard of these, probably not. I hadn't heard of them. But remember whenever I told you look around your garage and you look around your house and you see all of the things that have value that are not making you money right now? Well, a bike is one of them. But let's say you don't have a bike. Let's say you have nothing right now, no money, nothing. And you're like, huh, I want to have a bike, like an e-bike, for instance, like in that picture. I want to have an electric bike, but electric bikes cost about 2,500 bucks, right? I don't have $2,500. So, but I want an electric bike and I want it for free. So how do I do it? I had this idea in my head whenever I was looking at this picture. And I said, I wonder if I can just use Google and figure out how to get myself a free bike, a $2,500 bike. And so I went on Google and I typed in electric bikes and the website popped up, $2,500 for this electric bike, a nice electric bike. And I was like, okay, so how do I pay for it? I clicked on the bike and then it had a financing option. So I clicked on the financing option. Come to find out, I could get approved for financing with zero down and it would cost $97 a month. $97 a month, zero down, and I get this bike. Then I went on Spinlister, which is an app that allows you to rent bikes and surfboards and snowboards to people. And I listed this exact, like, I went on the website on the Spinlister app and I looked for bikes of this same model in this area, in the area that I was in. And they were renting for about $150 a day. Some of them in excess of $250 a day. So I said to myself, okay, so let's just say I take that and I cut it in half and I say $75 a day. $75 a day. If I rent this thing out for 2 days, then it'll pay for itself. I get a free bike. What's to stop me from doing that? What's to stop me from going on to Spinlister, listing my bike, that I put zero down on. And by the way, even if you have $0, there's a really good chance you have a phone, right? And so if you have $0 and you go on this website and you get it financed, it's zero down, and your first payment is not due for 30 days. So you buy the bike, you put zero down, you list the bike on SpinLister for, call it $50 a day. Who cares? $50 a day. And that'll undercut all of your competition. And then you rent it out for 2 days, you make $100, and then you use that $100 to pay your next month's loan installment, the payment for your bike. And as long as you rent it out 2 to 3 days a month, you have a free bike. You get a free bike. Why couldn't you go out there and do that right now? The answer is you can. Now, let's take it a step further. Let's say you don't want to, how often do you actually ride your bike? Do you ride it every day? No. Do you ride it once or twice a week? Maybe. What about all the rest of the time? Let's say you rented it out for $50 a day, and you were able to rent it out 5 days a week. That's $250 every week. That's $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month. So what's the difference in having a bike that's sitting in your garage or having a bike that you rent out on SpinLister that not only pays for itself, but creates an additional side income stream for you as well? And let's just say you're in a different city, or it's not an e-bike, but it's a normal mountain bike or whatever. All these numbers will vary. That is not the point. The point is not to get specific on the numbers. The point is the idea of having a bike and using SpinLister to have it pay for itself at a minimum and create a side income. But what if you like it? What if you enjoy delivering it to people, or doing bike tours? Maybe you love the area that you live in, you know a ton about it. People will pay you a lot of money to go on bike tours. Why? Because it's fun. It teaches them about the area. They get outside, they get moving around, they're a part of a group. You could literally create a business, a side business, giving bike tours in the area that you live, because you know more about it than tourists do. So what if you wanted to build a fleet? If you can get a bike for zero down and finance the payments, then why couldn't you have 3 or 4 or 5 of them? And then you create a system. Maybe you get one of your friends to help you. While you're at work, your friend, it's not rocket science. All they're doing is giving a bike to somebody and having them go through the app. And the app takes care of everything. So just get creative in your mind about what you can do. What about a truck? Fetch Truck is really cool. So Fetch Truck is an app that allows you to essentially charge people for the use of your truck. Now, you could rent your truck out to them, like on Turo or whatever, and we'll get into that later. But this is really more along the lines of, how many people do you know that don't have a truck and they don't want a truck, but they need one every once in a while when they move, when they do parties that require a lot of stuff, when they haul crap away from their house? I can tell you, me personally, I don't have a truck and I don't really want one. But when I need one badly, and I'm willing to pay for it. So you can go on Fetch Truck if you have a truck, and you can find a variety of different ways to charge people for use of your truck. You can haul things away from their house. You can help them move. You can loan them the truck for a day or two. All of this stuff, if you look at the numbers of what you can charge, it's mind-boggling. You can have your truck pay for itself very, very easily. And then the same concept applies. Instead of, like, how often do you actually drive your truck? And how often is it sitting in your garage or sitting in your driveway? Most people, they drive their vehicle less than 10% of the time. So you got 24 hours in a day, 10% of that, right? 24 hours, 10% of that day is 2.4 hours. How many people drive for 2.4 hours every single day? Almost no one. So the vast majority of the time, your truck or car or whatever is just sitting there, but you make the payment every month, right? So if you want, you can have a free bike and you can have a free truck just by using these two apps to create side income. And you can do all this in your spare time. Does that blow your mind? Guys, wait till you see the next thing that I'm going to go over in this next video. It is unbelievable. And I've done it myself, and I have difficulty even kind of putting it into words how awesome an opportunity it is. All right, guys. Basically, what I want you to take away from this one is anything and everything everywhere all at once. So, Utilize. Utilize is an app that I don't know that there's anything that you can't rent on Utilize. You can rent, take a look at your garage. Look at this picture. You have a baby stroller. You have a several bikes. You've got a snow shovel. You've got a toolbox. You have it looks like on top of here, this is the one of those things you put on top of your truck to or your car to carry stuff. You've got trash cans. You have okay, literally everything that I just talked about. You can rent. You can rent your toolbox to somebody. You can rent a baby stroller to somebody. Imagine someone comes into town and they're vacationing and they didn't want to have to pack a baby stroller with them in the airport, right? That is very common, extremely common. But they would love to have a baby stroller when they, go around the zoo because they don't want to have to carry their baby the entire time. And so you can rent your baby stroller out to them and make a side income just from filling a need that they have. And you can do it on Utilize. You can rent your toolbox out to somebody that maybe they have an odd job that they're doing and they need a whole bunch of tools, but they don't want to have to go out and buy them all. And because they're just doing this one project and they don't want to have a whole bunch of tools that they don't use most of the time. Maybe you just rent that toolbox out to them for 3 days and you can charge them $300 or whatever you want. You can charge whatever you want. Snow shovels. Let's say you're in a place where it snows frequently and not everybody has snow shovels, right? And if they need to shovel their sidewalk because they had a big snow and they happen to not have a snow shovel, guess what? They can rent one and they can rent one from you. And on and on and on. The bikes, the everything, the actual garage itself, you can rent out. You can rent out your dog. Stick with me here. You can absolutely rent out your dog, assuming your dog is nice and cuddly and friendly, which, again, most dogs are. You can rent your dog out to somebody who may be traveling in your area and maybe they want to go hiking and the one thing that they miss is their dog. And they love dogs. Maybe they're really nice and they want to go hiking. They traveled to your location to go hiking, but they weren't able to bring their dog with them. You can rent your dog out. I am not kidding. You can rent out anything that you can think of. So what I would recommend is make a list. Anything that is valuable, either valuable to you or valuable to somebody else. More importantly, valuable to someone else. Anything that is about, you can rent out camera equipment. Maybe somebody's coming into town and they want to do an epic camping trip and they have their phone, but they'd like a really nice camera to be able to document. Maybe they're doing a photo shoot. Maybe they're doing something and their camera broke or they forgot it or who cares what their reason is. What you do is you take a look, you make a list of everything that you have that can be valuable to somebody else, including, by the way, your time. You can actually rent out your time to people, especially if you have talents. Maybe you are an amateur photographer, and instead of renting out your camera, you can rent out your services as a photographer. I'm just spitballing here. I'm off the top of my head right now. I do not have a list that I'm going over. I'm just thinking creatively. And I wanted to do this example in front of you guys specifically so that you can recreate it in your own life. Okay? You can go onto GPT and type in, hey, how do I utilize to make extra money? Here's the list of the things that I own. And it will come up with a business plan for you. All right? So all of this stuff is available to you. The difference between people who actually know this information, which, again, if you're not in this world and you're not paying attention, then maybe, yeah, you won't know that this stuff exists, but it's very easy to find it. Just because you know this stuff exists doesn't mean that you can execute it or that you will execute it. That's where the support team comes in. And that's where, for us, the biggest part of helping you have success is helping you put it into a business model and then holding you accountable to execute it. But with Utilize, it's up to your own creativity. Anything and everything you have. Remember I told you that after this module, you would not see anything in your life the same. I am telling you, I look around this room right now, and this is a guest house that my family owns. There's like a guy gardening out in the back. So this is real life, right? And I look around at all this and I say, okay, um, well, the guest house itself obviously can be listed on Airbnb and can be rented out. Okay, there's a TV over there. That TV, what if I took that TV and I took a picture of it and I uploaded it to Utilize and I offered services to be able to rent it out? Maybe people buy it, maybe they don't. I don't know. But what I'm doing is I'm generating ideas. What if, let's see, I've got trash cans there. What if somebody needs extra trash cans, right? That's a real need. I can tell you whenever I was renovating my house, the biggest problem that I had was that I was constantly filling and overfilling the trash cans, and I would have given anything for a couple of extra trash cans. What if you are going to be out of town? Check this out. What if you're going to be out of town for a couple of weeks or a month, and your neighbor is renovating their house, and so they're constantly overflowing their trash cans the way I was? You can rent your trash can on Utilize. You can rent your trash cans to them. Just have them use your trash cans and pay you through Utilize to use your trash cans, and then have them, picked up in front just the same way that they normally are. The thing is, you want to be creative, okay? You want to be as creative as possible and just try stuff. List it on Utilize, try different price points, see what works. And in being creative, you will be able to take a look at everything that you have that has value and think of it in terms of potentially creating an income stream. Think about creating experiences. Whenever the key difference, I will tell you this without question. I know people that are crushing it in the Airbnb space, but they are not renting out places that are on vacation destinations. How are they doing that, right? They're buying these properties that are $100,000, $150,000 properties, $70,000 properties, and they're renting them out on Airbnb and crushing it. Even though it's in places like, Mobile, Alabama, and places like that normally are not associated with vacation destinations. The reason they're able to do it is because they create experiences, right? They create this homey feel, or they create this superhero theme, or whatever, right? You just want to be creative, and you want to think about helping people have experiences and have a good time, and you can monetize that. And then again, this is the idea. The idea is worth nothing. The idea only becomes valuable whenever you execute on it. And so when you start executing on this and you decide, hey, this is great, I'm making some money, but I want to make real money now and I don't want to use up all my time, then you start putting in systems and you start putting people in place and scale. Scale is what creates the wealth. And when I say scale, I don't mean work harder. I mean put systems and people in place so that you can create more income, create more opportunity without taking up more of your own time. Does that make sense? Okay. So think about this for a bit, okay? Once this video finishes, just think about all of the things in your life that you could use. Make a list of them. There are some things that absolutely you're going to be like, nope, I don't want to do that emotionally, right? I don't want to rent out my dog. That's crazy, right? Or I don't want to rent out this particular valuable thing, my car or whatever. I don't want to rent my garage out because I don't want to, I want to be able to store my stuff in there. Okay, you're going to have personal conflicts with some of this stuff. So what you do is you list everything and you ask yourself, what sacrifices am I willing to make to create the life of my dreams? All of this stuff you already own. You've already either paid for it or are paying on it. So I'm not asking you to spend any money at all. What I'm saying is take the things that are already in your life and turn them into little micro income streams. Because once you do that, it will build up and it will aggregate to a point where you've supplemented your income. You've created an additional income stream that is larger than your primary income stream. And I'm telling you, it feels amazing whenever you do that. All right. So go ahead and get to work, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, these are really cool. Neighbor and Swimply. I'm going to go over these pretty quickly, okay? But let's start with Swimply, okay? Normally, whenever you have a pool, it's the biggest liability ever, meaning it costs a lot of money to maintain, to keep clean, for the water, and obviously you have higher insurance if you have a pool. And how often do you really use it? It's the same thing as like the truck example. It sits in your driveway 90+% of the time. Same thing with a pool. I know because I have a pool and I probably swim in the pool once every month. The hot tub's a little more frequent, but like, I mean, it just sits there most of the time, just draining money away. And so take a look at Swimply, and it's an app where you can rent your pool out for people to swim. You can rent it out for photo shoots. You can rent it out for parties. You can rent it out for swim lessons. You can create passive income without letting anybody in the pool. If you have a pool that looks cool, you can rent it out for photo shoots. You have like we had one some kind of influencer that came and rented out our pool for like $250 for 1 hour because she wanted to take a bunch of pictures around a pool in Southern California. So $250. I didn't do anything. I literally didn't do anything at all. She didn't even get in the pool. She just brought her crew and they took a bunch of pictures and then they left. And I made $250, right? So you can turn this massive liability into an asset, and you can do it sometimes without even letting anybody touch the water. But the big money you're going to make is in letting people do it for parties. And you can even give ideas. Check this out. What about a mermaid themed party, right? Somebody wants to have a party for their daughter's 9th birthday, and you offer the opportunity to rent your pool and to have a mermaid themed party. Do you know how easy it is to get? You can go online and there are services where people will come, like the people that work for the company will come and they will, swim around in your pool in a mermaid outfit. I'm not kidding. We did it for our daughter once and she loved it, absolutely loved it. So you could host a mermaid themed party and you could charge a lot of money for the use of your pool and for essentially the theme. They would do all the logistics. You would just, I mean, I'm just tossing out ideas here. Who cares, right? What about if swim lessons are expensive? I'll just tell you that, right? So if you've got kids and you've got a pool and you want to get them swim lessons, instead of paying thousands of dollars for their swim lessons, why don't you use your pool to host swim lessons and charge the other parents for the use of your pool? They're going to have to pay for it anyway. Most people don't have a pool, and so they're going to have to go to a rec center or a local pool or something, pay for the use of the pool, and pay for the swim lessons. But instead of doing that, why don't they just use yours? And all you have to do in order to get your kid free swim lessons is charge enough from the other parents for the use of your pool to pay for the swim lessons, right? These are extremely practical. I'm not even trying to be creative here, right? This is just, you will be able to come up with much more creative uses of your liabilities than I am. I'm just spitballing here live on a video because I want to show you how easy it is. I'm not even putting in a lot of work. If I really, really wanted to get creative, I would just go on Google and I would list the top 10 ways that I could use my pool to make side income, or I'd use AI. More importantly, I'd probably go to ChatGPT and say, hey, list me a business plan for the top 5 ways to make income using a pool in the exact city that you're located in. And boom, it'll create a 5-point business plan for you, right? What about Neighbor.com? You're going to see some great examples of this in the supplementary materials and videos and things like that, because we've got a lot of people in our network who have created amazing income streams using Neighbor.com or the Neighbor app. You can monetize your attic. Let's say you have an attic right now and you just use it to store crap that you never look at. Well, and instead of storing your crap, why don't you store somebody else's crap, right? There are people out there who just are dying for extra storage space and they don't touch this stuff. I mean, maybe once every month or 6 months or whatever, they'll actually need it. So instead of, renting out a storage facility, which is very expensive, then they could rent out your attic and you could help them store the stuff in there. And then they would just pay you automatic payment on Neighbor.com, right? You can rent out a closet. You can rent out your backyard. I know somebody who rents out his backyard because another person has an RV and an RV can't be parked. It's too big for his driveway and it can't be parked on the street longer than 3 days because it gets these citations. Super annoying. So he's like, oh my gosh, I need to park this RV somewhere when I'm not using it, which is most of the time. And so my other friend has a large backyard that's empty. And so he lets him park his RV there and he charges him for it. And the other guy's happy to pay it because he wants to stop getting cited from the city. Okay. So you can monetize nearly anything when with Neighbor, Swimply, um, the Utilize. You can monetize nearly anything. So imagine this: you use your VA loan. Just to wrap all this together, this is just kind of a fun exercise. You find a place with a pool and an attic and a yard, wherever you live or wherever your duty station is or whatever. You use your VA loan to buy the house, zero down, get the seller to pay closing costs, so you have $0 out of pocket. And then you rent out the attic on neighbor.com, you rent out your pool on Swimply, you rent out your yard on Neighbor, you look into your garage and you decide that 5 or 6 of the things in there, like bikes and strollers and things like that, you can now rent out on Utilize. And not only does this house pay for itself, a house that you put $0 into, this house not only pays for itself, it can create an income stream. So you're not only living for free and owning for free, but you're building financial freedom at the same time. Is that awesome or what? Wait till you see the next video. This is one that's near and dear to my heart. Why? Because I am currently, as I've told you guys before, in the midst of a 3-month working vacation with my family. We're going across California and across Central America. My house that I used the VA loan to buy is paying for it all. But what about our cars? Right now, we rented a camper van on RV Share, and we're driving the camper van up through different campsites, and then we're currently in Carmel. But I'm not using my car. And I think I talked to you guys before whenever I did the vision board, but my car is a Tesla Model S performance version. I got that car, which is a very expensive car. I got that car, which is very expensive, after 3 years of waiting, investing in rental properties, and to the point where the rental income was enough to pay for the car loan. Is that right? So I use the whole Robert Kiyosaki idea of invest in assets that will then pay for your liabilities. So that's what I did to get that car. Okay, great. But that car's just sitting there right now while we're on vacation. So what do I do with it? Do I just continue to make the car payments and let it, drain away? No, of course not. So I've got it listed on Turo. Turo is an app where it's essentially like Airbnb, but for cars. So somebody comes into town, they can go to the car rental place, like Enterprise or Hertz or whatever, wait in line, pay huge amounts of money, and rent a car that way. And that's the normal way to rent a car. And you get whatever they have available. Or you can go on Turo and you can just pull up a list of all the different cars that are available, and you can search by type of car. So let's say somebody comes to Southern California and they're like, I want to drive a Tesla. Okay, so they go on Turo and they look up all the different Teslas that are available. Mine pops up and they say, okay, roger that. I'd like to rent that for 5 days. Well, I've got it listed for essentially $100 a day. It's like 95 bucks, right? So call it $100 a day. And let's just say they want to rent it for, 10 days, right? This happened last month. Somebody rented it for 10 days, drove it around for 10 days, and I made $1,000. That's the car payment. The car payment is $1,000 a month. So renting it out for 10 days at just $100 a day, which I could get more if I advertised it for more, but at just $100 a day, renting it out for 10 days out of the month, and I get a free Tesla. This is a very expensive vehicle that I can get for free just by renting it out for 10 or less days a month. So when we're on vacation, it's 90 days we're gone. So I've got a neighbor that's essentially doing the drop up and the drop off and the pickup, right? They come, we don't deliver it. So people literally come to where the car is parked, and you got a Turo app, and you take a bunch of pictures and you get the mileage and the odometer and all that other stuff. And you do everything through the app. It's just like Airbnb. It's like you could be touchless if you wanted to, where you could just leave the key somewhere and they can pick up the key, and everything's tracked through the app. The location of the vehicle, the condition of the vehicle, they've got their credit card information, everything's covered by insurance. And so if anything happens, it's covered by insurance and by the app. And now my car is making money while we're traveling. Instead of it just sitting there draining money from me while we're traveling, my car is actually making money. Now, I could not convince my wife to do that with her vehicle, but You got to pick your battles. Right? So just understand, most cars are parked 90+% of the time. So if you're going to go on deployment, normally you just store your car in a lot on base or whatever. Why not think about listing it on Turo and having somebody manage it while you're gone and give them a little piece of the action? Have it make money. Who cares if it doesn't cash flow? If it, let's say you have a $500 a month car payment and you rent it out while you're deployed and you can make $200 a month, which is very, very, very easy to do. Well, now you're not paying $500 a month while you're gone, you're paying $300 a month. Does that make sense? What if you wanted a really nice car? Let's just say you're like, man, I'd love to have a Tesla, but there's no way I can afford a Tesla. $1,000 a month, that is crazy. You're out of your mind. And I don't want to wait 3 years to invest in all these properties like I did and and wait to be able to afford the car. Let's say you wanted to be able to afford it right now, but you could only afford $300 a month. $300 a month for a car, but you want a Tesla Model S that's $1,000 a month. How do we do that? How do we do that? Well, rent it out on Turo, and your goal should be to make $700 a month. Because if you make $700 a month and your car payment is $1,000 a month, you're only on the hook for $300. So you can have, that's my dream car. I'm just using that as an example, but whatever your dream car is, whatever it costs, you take that and then you subtract whatever you can afford to pay. And that delta, that difference is what you need to make on Turo. And you can have your dream car right now. It's just an idea, guys. You can use it to make money while it's on vacations. Let's be honest of how often you actually drive the car and how much you actually need it. And then you can earn income while you're deployed on your vacation, on TAD, or you can just, what gets me excited is leveling up and being like, okay, I don't want to drive this. I used to have a Pontiac Grand Am, which I loved. I loved that car. But a Pontiac Grand Am is not a Tesla. Like they're completely different. One of them is a spaceship that's amazing and awesome and super fast and it's just awesome. The other was just an okay normal car, and I loved it and I appreciated it while I had it. And I also, in my mind at the time, I wasn't where you guys are. I wasn't making smart decisions like you guys are and learning this kind of stuff. I was just guessing. And for me, I never would have said, oh, I can afford this massive payment, this $1,000 a month payment, right? I can afford this. I never would have said that I could do that. And I didn't know at the time about this. If I had, then I would just Turo it, right? And I would get the car of my dreams and I'd drive it whenever I wanted to drive it and then Turo it whenever I didn't. What about making passive income while you're driving? Let's just say you're like, nah, I don't want to rent out my car. I need it all the time, but I want to have a car that pays for itself. Check this out. A very, very quick example. There is an app called Carvertise where essentially you allow people to wrap your vehicle or list on it, right? You can do entire wraps around your vehicle or you can just list on the side. You've seen people driving down the highway, right? And it's like, okay, they've got the, Melaleuca or whatever, or Jay's Cleaning Service or whatever, right? They're advertising using their cars. Well, you can actually offer up your car, kind of like NASCAR, for people to advertise on. And you can get as much as $400 or $500 a month if you let somebody like Loan Depot, for instance, or Rocket Mortgage. You can actually let them wrap your car and you make it's passive income. You don't need to do anything else except just let them wrap your car and use it for whatever you want to use it for. But let's just say you had a car, let's say, all right, here's an idea for you. Let's say you're really broke and you need a car and you're like, I'll take any car. I'm not talking about a dream car here. I'm talking about a car that gets me to work and I don't have any money. You can get a car for zero down, right? And let's just say it's $400 a month, $300, call it $400 a month for this car. You can get a good, reliable car for $400 a month, zero down, and you can structure it to where your first payment is not for the first month, right? So you get 30 days. You take it from the dealership, you drive it home. You will have already set up the opportunity to list it on Carvertise and have somebody wrap it. Over the weekend, you have somebody come wrap your car, and you get paid your $400 before the month is out. And you use that $400 to make the car payment. And every single month after that, you get $400 from Carvertise and you use that $400 to pay for your car payment. With $0, you just now have a free car, and you can use that car to drive you back and forth to work and continue on your way. Think about that for a second. I know people that I've worked with and helped who they're struggling to make ends meet. They're working really hard, but they're paycheck to paycheck, and all of a sudden their old car craps the bed, and it is a gargantuan deal to them. I've had people on the phone just weeping, grown men just crying out of shame and despair because they can't provide for their family because they don't have enough money to fix their car. Would something like this, would they be willing to, and you may be all Gucci and say, oh, well, I'd never allow anybody to wrap my car. Okay, fine. If that's not the thing for you, then maybe you'd use another side hustle that you're more, but there are people who are like, screw that. I'm not going to sit here on my ego and say, oh, I'd never let someone wrap my car. If I can get a free car that'll get me to work, and so I can support my family and start building toward financial freedom, I'm willing to make those kinds of sacrifices. Here's my point. There are side hustles for every personality and for every personal proclivity. Let's just say, like right now, I'm sitting here talking about like Carvertise, where it's like, yeah, it's a little bit silly, right? And yeah, I mean, who wants to drive around a car that has a wrap on it that says Loan Depot or whatever? Okay, I got it. Roger that. But there are people who are in desperate situations who could use that idea to take the first couple of steps to get them out of a bad situation. And then you've got the far end of the spectrum, which is I use my VA loan and I buy this multi-million-dollar house in Southern California and I'm using it to pay for this luxury vacation. That's the whole spectrum, right? And if you want me to get really crazy, we could get really crazy later and talk about how you can get a private jet for free, but that's not for this video. Nevertheless, let's just say you were okay with wrapping your car and you wanted to wrap it with something that maybe is in line with your values or something, right? So you just find a business that where the car wrap looks cool, it's in line with your values, and you make passive income. What else? What about the times that you're not working? What can you do? You can double dip because you can ride share. You can be a private taxi service. You can Uber. You can Lyft. Obviously, you'll want to deconflict, all of the different what the stipulations that they have, right? So they may require that you not have a wrapped car, but if you wanted to be a private taxi service, you could do that, right? I'm just trying to get you to think about things, okay? Be creative and think about turning your liabilities into assets, okay? Now time to get outdoors, okay? Outdoorsy and get my boat. There are bunches of these different platforms, but these are the two that I chose to focus on because they're the ones that I found the easiest to use. These are luxuries, right? This is a speedboat, right? Or a houseboat or a RV. Those generally fall into the category of luxuries that you can only afford if like you're retired or if you're wealthy, right? That in my mind, at least growing up, that's how we kind of saw all of this stuff is these are RVs and speedboats and houseboats and things like that, yachts. Those are only things that the wealthy people have or retirees who've worked their entire life and now they just want to live in an RV. But it's not the case. You do not have to be wealthy to have luxurious items. My wife and I, a couple of years ago, we bought a luxury RV. I'm not going to get too much into this because I actually have personal examples that I go over in the following videos. But suffice to say, you can buy an RV and you can rent it out to people who would normally just go to Cruise America or whatever that big RV company is. They would much rather go on outdoorsy.com and rent an RV from another person. It's cheaper, it's easier, and you can rent it out and have somebody pay for itself. You can get an RV they're relatively inexpensive. Even the nice ones, you can get financing on them and they're $600, $700, $800 a month. Do you know that you can rent them out on Outdoorsy for $200 a night, $150 a night, $200 a night? I've seen them upwards of $250 a night. So you rent them out for a week and boom, all of a sudden it more than pays for itself and you can use it the other 3 weeks. Anytime you want to take your family on a vacation or whatever in the RV, just block it off. And anytime you're not using it, which is going to be most of the time, you rent it out. Now there's things to consider, right? Like you want to obviously you have to pick it up and drop it off and have it cleaned and all those other stuff, right? So it's not quite as simple as like a bike for Spin Lister, right? This is a much more big boy, big girl kind of thing. But hey, if you love RVs and you want to have a free RV, then you can have it. You can get somebody else to pay for it for you. By the way, an RV that is put into business use and it weighs over 6,000 pounds, as of the current tax code, you can depreciate that entire thing against your income. It's just a little side note, right? You can rent your camping gear. Let's say you have camping gear and you love being outdoors and you love camping. But how often are you actually camping? And how often is it sitting in your closet? Well, in the times that it's going to be sitting in your garage or your closet, you can rent it out, right? You can, again, the creating experiences is where you're really going to make your mark. You can make decent money by just renting things out and having them be normal. But if you go a little bit above and beyond and create experiences, which all you have to do is during the supplemental materials and the homework and the live calls that we do and all this stuff, we'll talk about all of these different ideas and be specific about tips and tricks that we've used to set ourselves apart by creating experiences. But suffice to say, just remember, it's not just about renting the things, it's also about creating the experiences. With a boat, for instance, Get My Boat, right? You can list your boat on there. And same thing as we talked about with the bike. Let's just say you live near a body of water that you know really well and that you love. And that's why you got a boat, is because you love being out on that body of water. Spend a little bit of time learning about the history, learning interesting things, and provide tours. You can charge a boatload of money to provide tours. And you can even, like, again, think about it in terms of experiences. Maybe it's, you're catering to a party crowd. And so you've got a cooler full of beers and you take them speeding around the lake and, and you're kind of just, you got music and you've got, a kind of a party vibe. Or maybe you want to cater toward families. And so you pack a picnic and maybe a glass of wine or a bottle of wine for the parents and some juice boxes for the kids. And you've got on, you're maybe going around and talking about things that would be interesting to them, but in much more of a chill way. Or maybe you want to do high end and you provide champagne service and you deck it out with lights and maybe I'm just spitballing off the top of my head here, right? Maybe you take your boat and you put these string lights on it and you offer nighttime romantic cruise throughout the bay or throughout the lake. And you have champagne and you have music and you have lights and it's beautiful and romantic, right? I literally am just coming up off the top of my head with this stuff. That is how I would, if I had a boat. I don't have a boat right now, but if I had a boat, this is how I would get it to pay for itself. And this is how I would get it to create additional streams of income. Every single possible liability you can imagine can be turned into an income stream using any of these. And again, guys, I'm just going over the low-hanging fruit here. We have hundreds and hundreds of them. As we go into the next few videos, we have a tool that we've created that will allow you to identify a bunch of different side hustle opportunities and then model out how they'll work and then pick the one that you like the best and then execute. And this is the start. Are you feeling it now? This is the start of the rest of your life. You will never be able to look at these things the same. And if you really allow yourself to just imagine doing all of this and creating it into a system and a structure that allows you to get things for free, get luxuries for free, get your vacations paid for, live for free, and create multiple income streams without extra money, without needing extra capital. Can you see? You can see now how this is bit by bit going to get you closer and closer and closer to financial freedom. And then one day you're going to wake up and look up and be like, wow, I don't need to work anymore. Maybe you still want to work. Maybe you love your job. Awesome. But you don't have to work if you don't want to. And for those of you that don't love your job or wish that you were doing something that's more in line with your passion, wish that you were able to wake up in the morning and maybe you set an alarm clock, maybe you don't. I don't have an alarm. I have not used an alarm for years because there's nowhere that I have to be. Ever since I got out of the Marine Corps, there's nowhere that I have to be in the mornings. So I don't set an alarm clock. That's a beautiful thing. It's awesome. I still wake up when the sun comes up, right? But I wake up naturally. And I read a book one time that talked about that. It's like, true financial freedom is having the ability to wake up whenever your body wants to wake up instead of waking up to an alarm clock. So it's a little side note, but when you start turning every possible liability into an income stream, your life begins to change and it'll never be the same again.